Tonight, it's Crime Syndicate versus Justice League 1 Million, and not even the writer knows who ends up winning. Kinda getting some mixed messages from DC, between them being a super large corporation and having Communist Superman be like the nicest dude ever. And World's Finest, and more particularly Scribbly Gibbet, give us the grimmest, darkest ending to any of these tie-ins. Oh my god. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 195 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and we are on the final week of Convergence month, whatever you want to call it. So yes, this is it. This is the finale of Convergence. We have finally hit the end. This week's episode is going to be structured a little bit differently from all the previous weeks. So obviously, Convergence number 8 is the end of the event. There are a couple things in the tie-ins for this week that actually kind of lead into that, so I'm going to push Convergence number 8 to the end of the show and do all the tie-ins first. Sorry you have to sit through that, but not really. I had to as well, and it's really not that bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's not that bad. So yeah. What are we looking at this week? Let me just go ahead and tell you. In no particular order, we have Action Comics, Detective Comics, Infinity Inc., Justice Society of America, World's Finest, Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, Crime Syndicate, Plastic Man and the Freedom Fighters. I was going to say Forever People, but that's a different series. And Shazam. So all of those are the tie-ins. We'll be getting done with those. It's not even going to be in that order. Mainly the one that is big is the one I'm going to push right up to in front of Convergence number 8, and that is the Booster Gold tie-in. That one is shockingly prescient for the rest of what's going on, and yet also utterly skippable, like all the rest of these. So, I don't really have anything else to say there. Be sure to stick around to the end of the episode, because, once we end this, I'm going to tell you what the next phase of DC is, the next big thing we're doing here. So, definitely stick around, but, beyond that, let's go ahead and jump into whatever tie-in I decide wants to go first. Convergence Action Comics number 2, written by Justin Gray, art by Claude St. Aubin. So this one is Earth 2, Power Girl and Superman going up against Red Sun universe, specifically the Wonder Woman to an extent. So the fighting just got started last issue. They said they have to go off and fight and they got their powers back and all that. This one picks up with Power Girl talking to her boyfriend. Basically he's like, oh man, I got so used to being the man of the house and now you gotta go and fight for us. I feel like I should be protecting you. And she's like, that's stupid. Don't think like that. Just kiss me. So they share a moment, and then she goes off to fight, flying over across the wasteland to the Red Sun universe. And as she's flying across, she's just like, look, I don't plan on doing anything too harsh there, but I do want some answers for the last year of my life and maybe some payback as well. And then we see a bunch of missiles are being sent out. They start hitting her. She doesn't know where they came from, but she uses her supervision to see an invisible heat trail. And obviously it is an invisible jet. So she comes up and the Red Sun Wonder Woman is like, damn, this thing's flying faster than the speed of sound and this person's still catching up with me. So we see Power Girl just catches up the plane, rips off the wing and says like, well, it's going to be a bit of a bumpy landing. So the jet is careening towards, I believe, it must be Moscow. It starts crashing in the middle of the city, and we see a giant display of tanks just going down the road. So, as it's coming down, Power Girl's like, oops, I didn't mean for all those troops to die. Can't have that happen. But then the tanks just start opening fire on Wonder Woman's jet, and she's like, why the hell are they firing at me? So she bails out. She starts crashing down to the ground. Power Girl manages to tackle her into a cathedral and recognizes her upon impact, like, wait a minute, you're Wonder Woman. She's like, yep, and then kicks Power Girl in the face, sending her just rocketing outside the city. So we go down to Lex Luthor's lab underneath the Kremlin. He's trying to set something up, and Lois is just like, Lois, need you to trust me. Just trust me, I got this all under control. Meanwhile, Stalin and his guys are busting down the door. They start planting explosives to get in there. And as they get in, Stalin's like, all right, shoot them. Shoot both of them. They're against the motherland. And Lex activates whatever one of his things is, and it turns out to be a collection of GI robots who then start attacking Stalin and his men, saying like, yes, GI robots kill Stalin, kill the soldiers, take Stalin as prisoner. To which point Lois is like, wait a minute, hold on. No killing, Lex. We have to work together, even if it's with him. And he manages to talk down Lex and say like, look, Lois, I get what you're saying here. I understand you want to be, but like, I am protecting you. I am trying to save you here. And so Stalin says, oh, I'll kill you for this. And Lex says, nope, I run Moscow now. So we see the fight between Power Girl and Wonder Woman continues upstairs. Power Girl's like, I knew Wonder Woman. She would never be a filthy communist. And then she ends up getting shot by a tank because the tanks are still a part of this. She turns her attention to the tank just long enough for Wonder Woman to get a lasso around her neck. So that fighting continues on. Back downstairs, we see Lex has deployed a bunch of nanobots or something. So he found out about Stalin's super secret room. And he's like, go take me to the secret room. And Stalin's like, well, you know, as much as it pains me to say this, Lex, you do have the best solution here. Up above us, we hear this huge battle going on, so we must be able to make sure Moscow does not end up in ruins. So we end up in what it seems to be a war room of some sort. So Wonder Woman's swinging Power Girl around on the lasso, and as she crashes into a building, she's like, you are a worthy opponent. It's done now, though. And then in comes Earth 2 Superman, who lands a punch on Wonder Woman, and it's like, you better hope my cousin's still alive. And Wonder Woman's just bleeding out the nose. She's like, oh my god, that's a huge mistake. But then she looks up and she's like, wait a minute, Superman, what happened to you? And he's just like, what are you talking about? What happened to you? You're dressed all weird. So at that point, he puts together like, wait a minute, Diana, I know, wouldn't fight for anything than good and just. And she's like, yeah, that's not really, we live in Soviet Russia. I don't have a choice like that. So at that point, Power Girl gets back up. She starts to fight again. Superman's just like, hold on. He separates the two of them, just being like, look, why are we fighting? Because a big voice in the sky said to fight? Don't worry, don't do that. We're being used. We're not going to do that. And both of them are like, hey, we have no choice. You saw the other cities vanish. Like, we got to fight to save our cities. And he's just like, there's always a choice. You got to put our stuff aside, and we got to honor the people who died, because that's what this is all about. So yeah, he basically just makes the point saying like, we don't have the right to do this. We're going to go ahead and be bigger than that. And at one point, Power Girl says like, yes, we've compromised our ideals to serve someone else. And Wonder Woman just goes, that makes me angry. So there's an earthquake at some point. And Power Girl's like, oh, maybe Andrew was right. The whole planet's being torn apart. Down under the bunker, Stalin's like, uh-oh, earthquake. And Lex is like, yeah, whatever, don't worry about it. And he basically makes the point of saying, yes, our plan here is to launch our nukes over at the other city. Thus, Moscow wins. And Lois is like, that's your plan, Lex? That's the kind of man I married? And he's like, I'm doing this for you. I'm trying to save your life. And she's like, is it really all for me? He says, yes. And she's like, cool. I don't want it. If it's all for me, then don't do it, because I don't want you to do that. And he's like, are you serious? You're willing to die? And he's like, if it means not killing an entire city full of innocent people, then yes. But it looks like he's still about to go press the button anyway, and busts in Superman, Wonder Woman, and Power Girl. And immediately it's just like, yeah, Lex, we know that you're going to try to destroy Metropolis. And he's just like, okay, well, what you got to do about it? And he's like, sends the GI robots after them, and he's like, oh, GI robots, attack them. And they immediately just destroy these things. Like, not even like a second, just taking it apart. They say Luthor is under arrest. Stalin's like, yes, execute him immediately. And Wonder Woman's like, you're not in charge either, bro. We're taking charge. You sit your ass down. So Superman and Power Girl say, hey, we're going to return to Metropolis. We're going to get as much help as we can. We'll come back and figure out what's up. And one of them was like, yeah, I'll make sure your city doesn't get under attack. And if it does, I'll retaliate against them. And it's like, cool, awesome. So they fly back over to Lois and Andrew. And they're just like, hey, yeah, there's a lot going on over there. We got to deal with that. But Andrew comes out and says like, hey, give me a hug, woman. It's too much. I hate being apart from you. So they talk to their significant others for a little bit. Andrew kind of just like whines and moans that like, I don't have superpowers, but I'm not just going to sit here and watch the world die. And she's like, look, you're still my tough guy. I'm never going to leave you no matter what. Nothing's going to change that. Unless you shave, don't ever shave because I will leave you. And then as Superman also says the same to Lois of like, yeah, we'll be here. Don't worry about it. They part ways, fly off, and decide to head back over to help out with whatever's going on over in the Red Sun world. So, yeah, no, I mean, it's brief. It has, the turn is exactly what you expect it to be. I guess my only thing that I was hoping for is that this would be a little bit more focused on Superman and Power Girl, like the two of them together, rather than just Power Girl fighting Wonder Woman and then Superman coming in later. But yeah, it makes sense. He wouldn't really begin to fight anyway. And then the Stalin and Lex stuff kind of just feels like a tack on. The GI robots are interesting, but it's not. This is much more of a fun, lighthearted story than something that's going in and trying to say a message about like, no, we really shouldn't fight and all that. Like, don't get me wrong, they dedicate a page to it, but it doesn't feel like that's the point of it. So I'm going to say this one is a 7. It's okay. It's a fun read. It's fine in the way it is. It's just not anything standout either. So 7. Convergence Detective Comics number 2, written by Len Wein, art by Dennis Cowan. So this actually gives a full recap on the first 2 pages here. There is the Earth 2 Metropolis, where we're following Robin and Huntress as they are just trying to hold the peace and whatnot. And then there is Red Sun, Superman Earth, where he lost his powers, and he's also trying to hold the peace because, he's lost his powers, and it's hard to maintain that level of control without powers. So they've managed to meet up, and it looked like they were going to come to some sort of a truce of not attacking each other, but then Huntress is like, screw that, tried to attack, and then her car got blown up, seemingly killing her. Immediately, we find out that Superman rushed in, got her out of the explosion, and said, like, I'm sorry, would that have worked on any version of Superman? Like, do you know a Superman that would have worked on? And he uses his supervision to look around for where Robin is, and Robin just started running away, just being like, okay, Helena's now being held hostage by Superman. I need a way to think. I got to figure out what I can do here. But before he can get any distance at all, Superman's like right on top of him, and just like, hey, I couldn't save your car, but I saved the girls, so you want to keep talking? And he's just like, oh, well, if you want to fight, then so be it. And he's like, whoa, dude, we were talking. Let's just continue talking. Like, that's all I want to do. And Robin's just like, oh, yeah, right, sorry. So at that point, Huntress comes out and be like, you're going to try to confuse us and fill our mind with, you're a communist, man. Screw you. And he's just like, what can I do to make you think I'm not your enemy? Like, I don't understand what the problem here is. And also, you can't hurt me. So, like, it's in your best interest to, like, kind of go along with what I'm saying here. And Hunch is like, screw that, I'm going to try. She pulls out her crossbow, aims at his face, and he's just like, okay, like, I don't even want to know what kind of messed up childhood you had growing up that makes you want to kill this way. And then all of a sudden, in comes a grenade. It explodes. It's filled with a lead-lined gas that allows for Huntress and Robin to escape with the Batman of Russia in all the confusion so that Superman's not able to use his supervision. So he's like, we only have seconds, let's get out of here, let's go. So they trust him because, of course, he's Batman. And he's just like, look, time for discussion is later, but let's go. So they jump down, they head down an alley, and they head down into some darkness. Meanwhile, Superman's just like, all right, this has gone on far enough. I have been extraordinarily kind here, but, Mother Russia, Moscow's not even big enough for them to hide from me. So it's not done in like an evil way. He's just saying, like, I'm going to find them. So we cut over to a small little village on the outskirts of the town, and Batman's made a fire trying to keep them warm. And Elena's just like, I mean, you couldn't possibly be like Batman, right? And he's like, I am the Batman of my city. Like, it's what I've built up for. I'm a most wanted fugitive in Russia, and I'm proud of that fact. And Helena's like, well, on my planet, he was a hero, and he raised Robin, and he was also my father. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. And she's like, yeah, hey, do you think you could maybe take off your mask for just like a second? Just let me look at that. And he's like, okay. And so he takes it off. And he's like, I feel extremely uncomfortable with this. Like, I don't even recognize his face anymore. I just see myself as Batman. And she's like, it's okay. I recognize it. So he puts it back on and he's like, yeah, okay. So Robin puts forward, okay, why are you doing this? Like, what? You're going up against Superman. He's got all this control. Why are you doing this if you're not a hero, quote unquote? And he's just like, oh, because someone has to stand up to Superman. Like, he's an all-powerful threat. Someone's got to be the young worker rising up to attack. And Robin's like, in our world, you guys were best friends. And he's like, I don't really like that idea. So at that point, they hear some stuff overhead. It's helicopters flying over, looking for them. And just like, okay, they're closing in. We're going to have to move quickly here. I am going to give you this box. Open it up. You'll know when the time is right. When you're at your weakest, open it up. It'll be your saving grace. It's all that I could gather from the entirety of Moscow. So be cool. Meanwhile, I'm going to go and I'm going to do what I can to take him down my own way. And he goes, "Do svidaniya, comrades. We will cross again soon." So Batman drives away the fire of the choppers, giving them time to escape on their own, and he also just disappears into the darkness because, of course, he's Batman. So we see Superman flying above, and he's like, all right, even with that freaking Batman showing up and helping them out, they couldn't have gotten away that far. And he starts using supervision. He eventually does find them as they're just kind of meandering down the streets, and it's just like, oh, well, hopefully these buildings will protect from Superman's supervision. And he just busts in and goes, nope. So they launch some batarangs at him. He just catches them, and he's like, look, guys, there is always a choice here. We don't need to fight like this. And Helena's like, you judgmental bastard. Of course we're going to fight. So they keep on throwing stuff at him, doing whatever they can. He just like catches their explosives, everything like that. Nothing they can do. And so Huntress and him fly in with jump in with flying kicks. He grabs the two of them, smashes them together, just being like, look, I admire your own little fighting for yourselves here, but ultimately this is in vain, and I'm going to end this quickly. So as he's saying all this, Robin's just like, all right, well, I'm out of ideas. Let's open the box. And he's just like, I'm sorry. Whatever that is inside that box, there is nothing that could possibly hurt me. And so he opens it up, and of course it's kryptonite. But it turns out the Red Sun kryptonite, or the Red Sun has never dealt with kryptonite before. He's never actually come across it. So he's like, what in the name of Stalin? And so he starts feeling weak. Helena's like, of course, we can do it. We can go in. We can take care of him now. And Superman's just like, oh, please, I'm begging you, my city, my people, they need me. Please shut the box. And Robin thinks for a moment, and he's like, I can't do it. And he throws the box away. And Helena's like, what are you doing? We were winning. And he's like, not like this. This isn't how Batman would do it. Batman does not kill, and neither will I. So at that point, Superman stands up and be like, well, luckily, I have no such restrictions. And we see all these Russians have gathered behind now. They've heard all the fighting and whatnot. They've shown up, and they're like, kill him, Superman! Kill the capitalist swine! And it's just like, oh, the bloodlust in my people rises. In order to survive, they're calling for your death. And he's just like, all right, we're not gonna do that. We're not killing here. And Superman's like, neither am I. I don't listen to those people. I'm Superman. Like I'm not a killer either. That's not what I do here. This is not murder. We have to be able to resolve this conflict elsewhere. And he outstretches his hand again, and Robin's just like, dang, all right, you really are a chill dude. And so they shake hands and say, all right, we'll consider this battle a draw. And then Telos' big ass head shows up in the sky and says, hey, that's not, you can't do that. You consequences. And then all of a sudden there's an earthquake, a rumbling, and in a big thing of mist and quicksilver and whatnot, Robin and Huntress get teleported back over to their version of Metropolis, and they're like, what happened? Did we win? I don't know what happens. And so we cut to some time has passed. They're out of the cave, and they're just like, yeah, I don't know if we won, but our city's still here, so I guess everything's okay. And Helena even points out, like, I was acting so out of character there. I don't know why I was so violent or anything like that. But then all of a sudden, bat signal goes up in the sky. They rush off to get their costumes on. And Robin, who has been in the Robin costume all this time, has now finally put on the bat costume. And Huntress is like, what? Really? And he's like, yeah, I thought this is what you wanted. Are you cool with this? And she's like, well, yeah, but why now? And he's like, because I'm realizing that Batman is not just about Bruce, the guy who raised us. Batman is a symbol that stretches across universes. So I may as well put it on because, the people need it. And so they drive off and they say this isn't over yet. This is a nice little ending. I really appreciate that Superman in this is just so chill. Like, that's the one thing about Superman across all these comics is that no matter where we're at, except maybe the Kingdom Come universe, but even then, it's kind of tight, is he doesn't want to do this. Like, he hates the idea of going out and killing people and, like, fighting to the death and all that, and he will absolutely go out of his way to give every opportunity to not do that. So the fact that even the Red Sun universe, which I know he's not really evil in that book, he is just, born of a certain circumstance and then kind of grows out of it by the end, but, like, the fact that even that one is like, all of my people want me to kill you. I don't care. Let's solve this diplomatically. Like, I don't know. I like that. So I'm going to say this one is I'm going to say 7.5. I think I would have given it the 8 if the first, 3-4 pages of this didn't feel like totally non sequiturs, like completely separate of like, oh yeah, she's saved from the car explosion and Robin ran off, but don't worry about it, they're cool now. And it's only Batman coming in on page 5 where it's like, oh, okay, there's a plot here. But I still think it's good. I still think it's a 7.5 at the minimum. Convergence, Justice Society of America, #2, written by Dan Abnett, art by Tom Derenick. So last issue was basically the whole issue of them all saying, like, we're so old, we're not going to be able to do anything, Kent Nelson's in a coma, and then once the domes came down, they all got their powers back, but only temporarily, because Dr. Fate pulled a spell or something like that. So their opponent is the Weaponers of Claude, who apparently made a giant kill bot thing and has sent it in to destroy their city, and it's doing a bang up job. So they fly in and they're like, all right, first thing, protect the innocent, then we're going to stop this thing. So they start clearing out debris, protecting people as they're running away, getting away from the fight and all that. And as they're doing this, they're like, oh yeah, this shouldn't be a problem. Giant sentient super weapons, this is a walk in the park for us. So they start cleaning up. Green Lantern puts a big box around the bot, trying to contain it, and they're just like, okay, cool, we'll continue getting people out of here. As Flash is talking, he's like, what? Okay, so the Quardians, what do they do? Why do they just have a bot on the ready? And they posit that because they have also been stuck under a dome for the last year, and their whole thing is they are weaponers, that they have made this bot able to kill whatever it is, put them under the dome to begin with, and possibly destroy the dome itself. So at that point, they go ahead and show that it's starting to break its way out of Green Lantern's thing, that something's happening there. Everyone starts rushing in, doing what they can to attack it, but it manages to punch through and starts destroying the city some more. And they're like, okay, it's not even really worried about fighting us. It's literally just trying to destroy everything. So it seems as though the plan here is the city can't win, the city can't continue on the next round if there's no city left. So it's focused on destruction more than anything else. So at that point, Hawkman and Dr. Fate come in, they start attacking it at the same time. We see Hawkman manages to get batted away. And Dr. Fate's like, are you all right? And he's like, yeah, no, I'm cool, I'm good, I'm great, we'll just keep going. So he flies back in, and everyone kind of realizes real quick, they're like, this is really intense. This is like a fight that we need to worry about here, but at the same point, I am so happy to be young and have my powers back. This feels so good and I never want to give it up. Oh my god. And they're like, right? Does that make us bad people? I don't know, but I want to keep doing this. So they keep on fighting and they're all happy to continue doing it. Eventually, the combined might of all of them coming in, landing hits on it over and over again, They see that they do manage to knock the bot down and do some serious damage to the outer shell, to the point where it seems like it's down for the count. There's nothing that could be done for it. So it starts to fall back, but only for a second, because they immediately see that it is able to heal itself. It has some sort of self-regenerating alloy, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, so it's also built to take a lot of damage, and as soon as it's done healing, it just starts attacking again. So they're like, all right, second plan, what do we do? And they realize, well, we got through the outer shell, but we didn't deliver a finishing blow. So that's what we need to do, is we need to break through it again and then get to the innards and hopefully mix it up enough that it's unable to heal even from that. So they make a quick little plan. Hawkman's running the final point. Dr. Fate's going to break the shield, and the other two are more or less just going to keep it distracted, like do what they can. So they all jump in, doing their thing. As they're doing it, Green Lantern says they got about 10 seconds before its guns break through his Green Lantern shield. So Dr. Fate weakens up the shell of it by hitting it with its magic blast, and then Hawkman comes in, shatters the shell, and just starts going to town on the inside. And everyone else joins in as well. They're all happy to do it. We see that the earthquake that happens at all of these books starts going off, and just like, yeah, we hit it so hard, it felt like an earthquake was happening. And then finally it falls to the ground, and it seems that they broke it. So they look around, they think they won. There's no way it's getting back up. And a big voice from the sky, Telos, says, competition ended. And then we cut sometime ahead, I don't know what, and we see the three guys are sitting on a park bench. It's like, oh, my back, man, today's been a day. And they're just kind of like, yeah, you know, it's been a good life, and one of these days or this day is just another one of those days, but it was nice to be able to, even after all that's said and done, having such a good life, to have one final curtain call, one final coming out and having a final bow here. And then it's like, oh, is this what the end feels like? And they're like, nah, we're going to keep on staying alive. We're going to go down, get some coffee, do all that. Ken Nelson, who's now out of his coma, still awake, is like, hey, you guys, I will catch up with you. I need to go talk to Infinity Inc. over in their crossover book, because they've got some stuff they're working through. So I'll be back. I'll meet you up in a little bit. So at that point, all the rest of the guys are like, all right, let's go get some coffee. And I think it's Jay says like, oh, you remember that one time? And he was like, which one? He's like, I remember all of them. And the end. Nice little thing for the Justice Society. It's a very fast read, but it's not bad by any means. I will say, for someone who hasn't read Justice Society, who doesn't really have a connection with those characters, it doesn't really have a solid punch to it, but you get where it's coming from. You get this sort of heartfelt, like, they served their time, they did what they could, and now they're just kind of going back to the way it was before, and they're finally bowing out. They're finally saying, we're done. And this was the last one. So I'm down for it. I think it's a nicely written book. It may just lack a little bit of emotional punch if all you've ever known is the past, 15 years of comics, because God knows they haven't done much of anything with JSA in that period. So, yeah, I'm going to say this is a 7. I'm just feeling 7 here. It's not bad by any stretch, but I think a lot of it is art. I do like the art style in here. It's very crisp and clean. It's what I think of for JSA art style. And then, yeah, it's a decently written one as well. So 7, nothing to turn up your nose at. Convergence Infinity Inc. number 2, written by Jerry Ordway, art by Ben Caldwell and June Brigman. So, last issue, the whole big thing, as we got some sort of introduction to the Infinity Inc. team, is that they went out to go fight their opponent, which it turns out is Hex, which is Jonah Hex, that was sent to the future and lives kind of a Mad Max techno-punk aesthetic thing going on, 90s as hell. So we open up this issue and we see, I think it's Brainwave is his name, previous villain, kind of part of the team now. He's catatonic. There's nothing they can do. And Jay's just like, hey, we kind of need you here. Can you help us out? And there's like, nah, it's no use. He's done for. Everyone else needs to get going. We need to focus on working on this ambush because Star Spangled Kid just got wrecked. So They all jump out and they're happy to have their powers back, and they're just like, yeah, real quick, as we walk out, are we killers? Are we willing to kill? Is that a thing we're doing? And Fury's like, damn right. And everyone else is like, I don't think so. I don't think that's not. So they get over there and they start blasting around. And then one of them is, no, it's not Manta because he calls Manta. I don't know. Someone else is flying around after Star Spangled Kid, and it turns out that he has paralyzing powers. He has a beam that can paralyze people. And so he's like, oh no, someone please help. And so Jade comes in, makes a construct, and helps out in the fight. Honest to God, this really is just kind of a, hey, let's kind of go one by one and show the powers of each of the members of the Hex team. So they go in, we see one of them is a Viking, and he has like full-on Viking beliefs and whatnot, one of which I believe is kind of just like a ninja, like hides off from the shadows, but then also has a fire demon living inside of him, and anytime he's in like a sticky situation, he can go full Etrigan and summon the demon. The one named Nuke, I think, from the Infinity Inc. team starts going up against that one, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm a huge giant now because I can grow. And the Viking looks on like, that's insane. I can't believe there's an actual giant here. And then Fury comes in and starts kicking the Viking's ass. Star Spangled goes after Jonah. Jonah's about to shoot him because obviously he's still paralyzed. In comes Silver Scarab. And just like, all right, let's get you the hell out of here. We then see, I don't know, they call him Norda, I guess. He's a bird guy, and just like, oh, you know, we help get him out of here, take him out, he's paralyzed, take him over to Brainwave, we'll deal with the rest of the fight here. So Jade at one point is fighting against a guy that can paralyze, and then a bunch of kids and like other people show up from this wasteland and start throwing rocks and stuff at her, distracting her enough that she can get paralyzed. She falls down into the crowd, and they're like, oh, Tella says we gotta kill you, so we're gonna kill you. And she's like, wait, no, hold on, this isn't, I thought it was a fight between champions. What is this random people attacking? So Obsidian at one point goes up behind this one blonde girl on the team who's just got a big knife. As far as I can tell, that's all she does. And he sees that Jade's in trouble and just passes through this woman, and that's enough to take her out of the fight for a while. Goes over trying to save Jade. We see that as Jade is being attacked, she sees some of the people attacking her as her father, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, and she's like, Dad, why are you hurting me? No. And so Obsidian comes in, manages to save her, and she's like, oh, Todd, you hurt our dad. And he's like, okay, you are not okay, but we're going to get you out of here. So then in comes Hex. He's on his motorcycle, and he's like, hey, I'm not happy with what you did to the blonde girl, but she's a hardened assassin, and you made her go to tears. What's that all about? And we see Fury is pretty much killing people. Like, maybe she's not technically doing it, but I see an axe in somebody's throat, and just like, all right, that's a bit much. So everyone comes up on Hex, and he's just like, hey, look, are you, my entire team, we're ready to kill. I don't think any of you are, except maybe Fury. She's kind of crazy. But like the rest of you, you're not ready to kill. And that's why I don't think you're going to be able to win this. But Nuke is just like, well, I'm prepared to lay down my life for my friends if it's going to come to that. And then all of a sudden there is an earthquake. We see that there is a fusion generator, and Brainwave just shows up, mind you. He's just like, that's a fusion generator. And it's powering the city, but because of the earthquake, it's not going to last much longer. So they have to very quickly get Brainwave out of there as well. However, he calls in, and he's like, wait, everyone, we're done fighting. And I guess he just like mentally reaches out to each of them and stops everyone from fighting. However, Brainwave tries to do it to Hex. It's not working fast enough because he's already fading away. And so Obsidian's like, I got this, man. Jonah Hex, prepare to see the darkness in your soul. And he does whatever his power is, where he forced people like Ghost Rider, stare of whatever. And he goes through Jonah's past as we see it. And Jade wakes up. She's now back to normal and tells Obsidian, hey, back off, let him go. Like, don't show your shadow rip thing to him. And it turns out it's not Jade. It's actually Brainwave making Obsidian think that he's Jade enough to let free of Hex. And then he's like, hey, look, I get that you're upset and stuff and you've got your own emo past, but like, don't put him through that. That's a bit much. So at that point, everyone kind of goes off on their own thing. It seems that the entirety of Hex's team is now completely taken care of, except up in the sky comes some other totally separate member we didn't know before in a giant-ass ship. And he says, I'm the ace in the hole. I have the nuclear option button, and I can destroy all of us combined right here, right now. And it's like, are you serious? Like, you'd be willing to do that? And then Hex is like, stand down. Like, we're at a stalemate. Like, they're willing to accept the consequences, and I don't know if maybe both of our cities don't need to die. So let's just work on getting people out from under the debris. And so they start working together. We see Brainwave is losing connection to Telos, or at least he's trying to establish a thing with Telos, but it's not working. Regardless, he doesn't feel anything. And he's like, oh, this truth may fall apart because without an official sanction from the higher-ups, will it be recognized or will we be forced to fight until we die? And then he thinks about lying and saying, hey, Telos is cool with it. We're good to fight. So at that point, he gets woken up and they're like, hey, are we in the clear? And he's like, I don't know. Telos didn't answer. He didn't respond. Let's just get everybody out of here and get out. So they help out as much people as they can. Load up people onto the big ship. It seems that there are apparently 800 injured and 200 people dead from all the fighting and the earthquake debris and whatnot. And they're like, hey, sorry about that. They going to be okay? And Hex is like, I don't know. We got some weird future tech. It might work. Who knows? So Hex literally tells them to go on, get out of here. And as they start making their way out, they fly away from the city and it's just like, well, it's good to be back in our powers. Happy to have this. Maybe we'll go back to our own Earth now. We're happy that we're not killers and all that. And then as they're just doing their little victory speech to themselves, the entire city behind them just explodes. And they're like, oh, crap. That fusion reactor thing. That just went nuclear. Like, that blew up. Oh, no. And so in comes Dr. Fate, and he's like, hey, everybody. I'm over from Justice Society. Don't worry about the town that blew up. That's not your problem. Like, they're all dead. Don't worry about it. Come back to the main area. And they all just are like, okay. So they all come back to the Infinity Inc. place. Jade is happy to see her dad is there. All the Justice Society members are there. They're all old as hell. And they're like, hey, all right, look, kids, we wanted to talk to you. You've been through a lot today. You guys asked us pretty recently to be members of the JSA. And Silver Scarab's like, oh, and now what? Now of all times, you want to apologize for being such dicks about it? And it's just like, oh, calm down, buddy. That's not why we're here. Look. You've all proven yourselves capable, though there is room for improvement. And the nuke is like, oh, so you're coming in here telling us that we need to train more. And they're just like, guys, shut up. That's not what we're telling you. Look, we're getting old. We defeated our enemies over in our book, but like, it's not happening anymore. This version of the Just Society is done. We're retiring. And we would like to induct all of you, Infinity Inc., into the JSA. And everyone hugs and is happy and all that, except for Obsidian, who's standing emo in the background. And Star Spangled's just like, hey, well, Infinity Inc. is actually like an incorporated enterprise, so how about we do a merger? Let's call it JSA Infinity. And he's like, oh, we'll workshop it. And Dr. Fate is like, well, our futures are not written here. We must be prepared for what comes next. And Star Spangled Kid said something about, we may never get home again, but we will continue the fight. And everyone looks off heroically to side panel. And that's the issue. Okay. My problem with the last issue is I didn't know who Infinity Inc. was, and I didn't feel like the issue was doing a good enough job of telling me that. That does not get better. That is still a problem. I still don't feel like I know who Infinity Inc. is, but at the very least, this issue doesn't feel like it's necessary. It's just a big fight scene, and as long as you get the gist of people's powers, you're fine. However, I also don't feel like I know their powers that well. Silver Scarab flies in. Is that his thing? What else is his thing? I don't know. They don't go into it. Brainwave. Is his thing telepathy? That's kind of what I'm getting here, but then also he's just kind of catatonic for a while. What does Star Spangled Kid do? He can fly. Anything else? I don't know. Again, it doesn't do a good job. I think you have to go into this knowing who Infinity Inc. is and knowing their basic gist of their stuff. The only thing I'll give it credit for is I think that it did a decent job of explaining the Hex universe. It did a good job of saying, all right, here's who these characters are as much as you need to know them, and then wrapping it up. So It's got its positives. I'm a little bit more negative on it, though, so I think I'm probably going to end up at just like a 5.5. Also, the art style is a little bit iffy for me, but that's far and away much better than like most of the other problems I have here. So I'm going to say 5.5, but I think if you're an Infinity Inc. fan, you may get more out of it than I did. Convergence, World's Finest #2, written by Paul Levitz, art by Jim Fern and Rod Wagner, with additional art by Shannon Wheeler. So, last issue, we followed Scribbly Gibbets, a random-ass cartoonist dude who battled around with the 7 Soldiers of Victory. A bunch of the 7 soldiers died when they lost their powers, and also the fact that they were just human and lost their powers regardless, or died regardless. And then the domes came down, they got their powers back, and now we're back in the fight. But really all that's left is Shining Knight, Vigilante, and one more that I can't remember the name of. I think it's like Avenger or something like that. So we see that their opponents that they're going up against are the Weaponers of Claude, which means a bunch of guys with rocket boots and lightning bolts that they throw at people. That's literally about all they do. So at that point, we see that the fight is going on. Scribbly is on the back of Shining Knight's Pegasus and is like, well, I'm in the middle of this, and as a reporter, I would love to report on it, but like I might end up dying first. And we see a lightning bolt kicks him off of the Pegasus. He lands down on the ground. And Shining Knight's like, hey man, get out of here. This fight's too much for you. I'm going to fight this guy on my own. And so Sir Justin takes off. We see, as he's saying, like, well, I got to get back up again. I got to get the story of my life. We go over to Vigilante and that other guy again. He's in a red suit. He gets a name later on. I'll see if I can find it. And we see that they are being beset by an entire horde of the Weaponers. However, it seems that Telos is specifically getting himself involved in this one for some reason. Like, he lowers his hand down to drop off the red guy and Vigilante and just like, here's a bunch of people for you to fight, have fun. And so at that point, they have their own weapons that fire off energy blasts. They're firing up in and saying, oh, they're vulnerable to their own energy frequency. And so they start firing in. We see that Sir Justin and the one Weaponer that he's fighting against, for whatever reason, Telos has made a gladiatorial arena on top of a floating piece of rock and says, like, this should be better for you guys to fight until one of you dies. And so they land, but literally the Weaponer's just like, nah, I don't trust you, and I don't trust, like, the guy who's doing this, so screw you. And he just starts throwing lightning bolts again. We see the fight is still continuing on the ground. Scribbly has a few extra pieces of art. I will say Shannon Wheeler's little cartoons she does for this section are great. I love their style. But yeah, they just continue on fighting as best they can. And we see that, oh, the guy's name is Avenger. I was right. It is Avenger. So we see that the Weaponers are starting to just destroy the city as a whole. Like, they're not even worrying on fighting the two of them. But they're thinking like, oh, well, this is an entire army. We're not getting out of this alive. So it's like, well, at least we're not stuck in that goddamn dome. So we see Scribbly is climbing his way up the giant floating rock to try to get the story of Sir Justin's fight. And he's like, yeah, I always thought I had a pretty decent life being a cartoonist and all that. I had all that, but turns out, it's not enough. I want more. And so he rushes in. He sees Sir Justin is getting his ass handed to him on this gladiatory arena. The Weaponer grabs a sword and tries to slash him with it. And then Sir Justin just grabs it with his bare hands and snaps it in half. The horse comes in from behind and tries to attack the Weaponer. But the Weaponer throws a lightning bolt and seemingly casts down the sword and says, stupid ass sword, it broke. So he picks up the shard of it, stabs it into the horse's chest. Immediately Sir Justin's like, oh, victory, my horse, what's wrong with you? And the Weaponer in this horrific looking panel is just like, just say defeat, man. Say this battle goes to Claude. And then we see around the town, the Weaponers are just kind of raiding and looting. Like, they're going into grocery stores and just like, oh boy, leafy greens, haven't had this in decades. And they just start chowing down. And they're just attacking random people as well. A random cop comes up, tries throwing a punch, and nothing happens to him. Like, there's no follow-up. You just punch the guy in the face. We see Vigilante and Avengers are like, all right, this is it. Like, they're in the middle of a fight. I cannot express this enough. They're smack dab in the middle of a crowd, getting their collars grabbed, their shoulders grabbed, and they have enough time to say, all right, this is it. And they stop and give each other a big old high five. And they say, to the end. So the Weaponer is about to attack Sir Justin. It's a whole thing. And he's like, oh, die, Earthman, so Quard may live. And we see Scribbly has come in with one of the maces from this gladiatorial arena, hits the Weaponer over the head with it, throws a sword over to Sir Justin, and it's his magic sword. It's the one specifically for him. And he's like, this thing was made by Merlin, so it's going to be better than any weapon you have. And Weaponer throws the electric bolt, the lightning bolt. It reflects off of his weapon. The Weaponer then grabs a sword. The sword is no match for the might of Merlin's fires, and we see it slashes right through his sword. And then in an art change, mid-panel here, the Weaponer gets kicked in the chest down on the ground, and he's like, you must yield. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to kill me if you want that to happen. And then Telos says, wait, hold on, I've seen enough. Y'all suck. And I'm not even kidding here. Telos then comes out of the ground, slams his hands down, and just like, you are useless to me. And it's like, what? It's mercy. I'm showing mercy to this guy. And he's like, whatever. Your city is fated for what it is. I'm not punishing you, but like, go back and you're going to have to live your life as it was ordained. And we see Telos just walking away in the background as Scribbly pulls out his notepad and says, that was weird. Better write it down before I forget all of it. But Sir Justin stops him and says like, hey man, we're not done yet. Let's get out of here. We got to continue down this path, but you're coming with me because you're a hero now. You're one of the soldiers of victory. And if we have to die, then we're going to die with honor. And then we get two final pages here that I guess are like epilogues. An earthquake rolls through. There's literally dinosaurs flying around the city. Avenger is underneath the weapon of the Weaponers. He's about to be killed by it. We see a whole bunch of other people down, including Vigilante. He's seemingly dead too. And like the caption boxes are all from Scribbly's perspective. He says, oh, most of the people in the city, it won't be a happy ending. Most of them will die. I can almost hear death walking through the streets, collecting souls. I can hear their fear and crying, and the Cordians are still in the city along with other things. And then it says Telos's game is over as we see Cordians holding like human bodies. Whatever its unimaginable purpose may be, are we going back to our doom? But then it just ends with Scribbly Giblets saying like, yeah, well, at least I got to walk with the heroes. And that's it. That's how it ends. What the hell, man? I don't even know where to begin with this one. Like, it was such a weird previous issue as well because it was so like dark for seemingly no reason, where it was like, yeah, you know, Green Arrow and Speedy died, and then this other guy died just because like he was helping people too much. And then this one, Telos is personally involved. He's like, I've made you a gladiatorial arena. And then when Sir Justin straight up wins, he shows up and says, no, you should have killed him. Disqualified. And then like, for whatever reason, the city doesn't disappear. But the Weaponers go ahead and start, like, destroying the entire planet regardless? What is this book? I'm so confused. I don't even know how to begin rating it. I guess I'll give it a 6.5. I guess that's kind of where I'm coming down on. It feels weird to give it a 7, but at the same point, like, I liked a lot of the art in it. It had so many weird moments, though. It just, I don't know, man. I would love to, like, hear from Paul Levitz, get an interview with him, and just say, like, what was going on with this one? Please. Huh? Because I just have no idea. So, yeah, that's World's Finest, I guess. 6.5. Convergence Shazam number 2, written by Jeff Parker, art by Doc Shaner. So, last issue we had basically the whole plot of it was them coming across a plan from Savannah and a bunch of other people in the Shazam Rogues Gallery, them getting their powers back at the last moment, and then they come outside and see, oops, turns out the battle already started and we got a bunch of blimps bombing us. So we pick up this one. We see Bullet Man and Bullet Girl are trying to redirect the blimps outside of Fawcett City, and a couple of bombs are being dropped down from even higher up blimps, almost directly on time of them. They don't have any time to move. In comes Shazam, hits the bomb, prematurely detonates it, and he's just like, oh, sorry, I got a little bit rusty. And they're like, oh my god, Captain Marvel, you're back, that's great. That's and the rest of you here too. Were you stuck outside the dome and you just flew back in? And they're like, yeah, that sounds reasonable, or something close to it. So Captain Marvel's like, look, I'm going to go figure out what's going on. I'm going to fly to the city that these things came from. You guys stay here and help the Bulleteers take care of all these blimps. Get them outside of the city. Don't let them wreck, because we're going to get a Hindenburg situation. They literally call that out. And they're like, cool, we'll do. So Captain Marvel starts flying out of the city, and he's just like, a lot's at stake, but like it feels really good to fly again. I'm real happy being here. So he flies over to the Gotham by Gaslight universe, and he's like, this is weird. Everything's like old-timey England. What's happening? One of them goes, oh, one of them's come from Gotham. And then he's immediately hit by a flamethrower. We see it's Batman, who has self-fashioned himself a little personal dirigible, and is like, yes, ever since the dome came down, I've told the scientists of our town to make me a device that can deal with anything, including a flying man, because I figured I'd be coming up against something like you. So bring it. I'm ready to defend Gotham. And he starts flying his ship towards him, hitting the flamethrower. We see it forces him down to the ground for a second, and as he starts flying back up, he happens to fly right in between two, I don't know what you call them, electrical pylons, something that can conduct electricity between them, and Batman flips the switch, and immediately, like, all these surge of electricity starts going through Billy and the Captain, and it actually sends him into, like, a little mind space where the Captain is talking to Billy, and it's just like, oh, there's so much current, I'm trying to stay, but it's changing me back. And they're like, wait, what? But it's supposed to only be the wizard's magic that can turn you back. Like, how can this be a thing? It's like, I don't know, it's just so much power, I've never taken it before. It's like, well, this must all be happening in like the blink of an eye. This must be very quick. How can we even perceive this? Long story short, what they end up coming down to is Billy says, like, okay, well, hold on, maybe the truth is the electricity is what is needed for the transformation to happen, but maybe we actually are the ones that control it. And Billy says, I'm the one who summons the thunder, and right now I want us to be one, the person that Fawcett City needs to survive. So Captain Marvel falls to the ground. He doesn't transform back. He is still Captain Marvel, and Batman's just like, how in the hell did he survive that? Also, my controls won't respond. Oh god, I've got to bail. And so he jumps off the ship, he lands next to Captain Marvel, and he does like his little wing spread thing, and Marvel's just like, neat. So at that point, they start gliding together, and he's like, hey, it looks like your ship just got abandoned. Like, I'm not gonna punch you if you're upset about that. And he's like, what, you're not the one who locked up my controls? And he's like, nah, I just fly and hit things real good. And it's like, oh, all right, so what did it? And they come to the conclusion that there is a building outside of town that has a sort of magnetic field to it. It's pulling all sorts of mechanical stuff over towards it. And they start flying towards it. They see that there is a force field in the way, and they're unable to get through, but there's something familiar about the energy to Captain Marvel. But Batman says, oh, we can get in underneath. There's a whole tunnel system underneath the building. So they go down to the sewer. As they're flying through, in comes this version of Killer Croc where he's like, yeah, Batman, I told you not to come back to my part of the town. Yes, I understand it's England, but this is just the vibe I'm getting from him. And so he's about to beat up Batman because Killer Croc is the strongest there is. And then Captain Marvel just picks him up by the scruff of his shirt and just being like, is this guy causing you problems, Batman? And so Croc throws a punch at Marvel, doesn't do anything but break his hand. And we see Croc's eyes roll back in his head and says like, oh, his strongest is yet to come. He's here, and now you'll see who's in charge. And Batman's like, all right, that's something's wrong with him. That's weird. So they go up into the museum of whatever this is here. It's some sort of thing. And it turns out that Mr. Atom, the robot from the last issue, has self-ejected a pod or something from Fawcett over here to be able to rebuild himself, and he activated the mechanovirus that Cull was working on, and it causes all of the things to start coming towards him so he can rebuild himself even bigger and stronger too. So he's doing all that, and he's just like, well, then we'll just kick your ass. Like, we're just going to do that. But it turns out that he's somehow weaponized all of the Gotham by Gaslight versions of the Batman Rogues Gallery, including Joker, Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, Man-Bat, Riddler, Two-Face, Penguin, Harley, Ivy, and Clayface. And he's just like, well, good job getting to me if you want to deal with them. So Mr. Freeze freezes Captain Marvel. He just busts right out of it again. But it gives Mr. Atom just enough time to finish building. He is now skyscraper sized. He's absolutely massive. He crashes through the roof of this entire museum, and he's just like, haha, no, I got you, Captain. You can't take out someone this big. And there's a little earthquake at this point, but it doesn't really do much of anything. But as Mr. Atom comes up and out of the building, in comes the rest of the Captain Marvel family, along with the Bulleteers and Talking Tawny in a biplane. So Batman starts punching out his rogues gallery. The Bulleteers come down and they're like, "Hey, does this guy need help? No, he looks good. All right, we're just gonna lift some of them away real quick." We then see Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel are flying in to try to take out Mr. Atom. And he's like, oh, it doesn't matter how much you try to attack me. I can heal myself with the mechanovirus. I'm immortal now. And Captain Marvel says, hey, you guys keep on drawing his focus. You attack the head because I don't think he's in the head. We keep on thinking of fighting Mr. Atom as fighting a normal human being, but I think that there is a man behind the curtain of all this. And so he starts punching his way in through Mr. Atom's chest, and inside he's like, I have a feeling there's a certain string puller here, and he comes across a tiny little caterpillar, Mr. Mind, who says, curses, how did you know? And he's just like, yeah, it makes sense. You came over to this world after abandoning your old world, same way you did in your origin story, and also you like controlled all those Gotham villains, which that's just telepathy. Mr. Atom doesn't do that, but you do. And he's like, yeah, and I was also controlling Savannah and all the rest of the villains to make them think it was their plan, when in actuality it was me. But here's the thing, I ain't going back. And he starts the self-destruct sequence, and Shazam's just like, oh god. And so everyone takes off. They fly away from the gigantic Mr. Atom as it self-destructs. And because it's such a large explosion, it does basically take out all of this Gotham by Gaslight City. So Batman looks up and he's like, oh god, it's gone now. It's all gone. And so the city just starts to like fade away. And the Captain Marvel fan was like, well, I guess we won, but like I don't feel good about it. And it's like, yeah, well, you know, there's never really a happy ending, or maybe not even an ending, but all we have are the moments, and this is a special moment to me because I'm in the sky again with my friends and family. And they smile as the sun rises on the broken ashes of Gotham by Gaslight, I guess. It's good, but it feels so preoccupied with making a good Captain Marvel story that, like, who gives a crap about what's going on with the Gotham by Gaslight, you know? Like, last issue was 100% all devoted to the Captain Marvel, and then this one I would say is 75% Captain Marvel. Sure, you get a cool couple images of like Batman coming down in his blimp or whatever. You get all the rogues gallery looking in like steampunk sort of alternatives. It's got a style to it, but yeah, the focus here is telling on a good Captain Marvel story, and it is good. It is fine for what it is. I really like the 2-page spread where Billy and the Captain are talking inside of the electricity field. That looks great, and it's a great layout there. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like it needs to be Convergence at all. It just feels like someone just really wanted to write a Captain Marvel story. So yeah, I guess I'll say it's probably like a 7.5 for me. The Doc Shaner art is also fantastic. I really have nothing bad to say about that either. So yeah, 7.5, doing great. Convergence Blue Beetle number 2, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Yishan Lee. So last issue, we basically just got the rundown of who is Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, and the Question in this Hub City universe. And we also got a little bit of a tie-in with what was that? The Future's End issue of Booster Gold, which happened to pass by through this period. This issue basically picks up immediately, though, with the reveal of who they're going to be fighting against, who their opponents are, and it is the Legion of Superheroes at some point or another. They don't get specifics into the time period or which reboot we're at here, but it is 30th century Legion of Superheroes, and they look up and they're like, okay, so it's the three of us, two of us without powers, and then Captain Atom against dozens of superpowered teenagers. You got it. So we have Cosmic Boy, Brainiac 5, and Timberwolf landing on the Beetle, trying to say, like, all right, we are who we are. We represent the Legion. Which one of you is the leader? And they're like, we don't really have a leader. And then Ted steps up and he's like, I'm the leader. How's it going? This is Captain Atom, and this is the question. We are the heroes of Hub City. And they're just like, yeah, we're more like a loose collective at the very best. And immediately Cosmic Boy is just like, I'm sorry, Beetle, like a bug? That's your thing? And just like, yeah, look, here's the thing. Telos is putting us against each other. It's a difficult position, but how about this? You surrender now, and I promise you will not be harmed. And immediately Cosmic Boy was like, yeah, we weren't really worried about that, but we're going to defend our city. And Blue Beetle's like, just remember I gave you a chance. To which point, Question's just like, yeah, I don't think humiliation's a good tactic here, man. And then all of a sudden we hear a zap noise, and it turns out that he has magnetized the outer shell of the Beetle in order to keep Brainiac 5, Timberwolf, and Cosmic Boy in place as they drop down inside of the Beetle, and they're ready to start breaking it down, figuring out what's up. So Beetle immediately goes over to Tracy, the girl who I guess is his assistant, and she's like, yep, the computer was able to pick up on their Legion rings, which also act as communicators. It deciphered the Interlac language almost immediately, and then was able to pick up all of their identities and superpowers immediately from that. And Captain Atom's just like, I don't think I like the fact that a civilian has this kind of tech. And Question's like, just deal with it later, man. So at that point, the ship starts going haywire. They start getting thrown around. It's like, oh man, I didn't expect them to recover that quick. We see Colossal Boy has just grabbed the ship and is just shaking it randomly. And then all of a sudden it teleports away, teleports onto a random building about a mile away. And there's a dog just sitting there. I'll get to it. But Blue Beetle's like, all right, well, hopefully it kept them away for a while. And everyone's like, you upgraded your tech, man. And he's like, yeah, I did. Look, I need you guys to keep them off our backs for about 6 minutes. Can you do that? And Question, Captain Atom are like, look, you're not really our leader, but you're the only one coming up with good ideas right now. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do what we can. So we see the Legion is flying through the city looking for them. And they're kind of like, yeah, we feel bad about this. We don't want to wreck their city, but we're going to do what we have to do to be able to win here. And as they're flying through, all of a sudden, Captain Atom is just charging through with a massive energy blast. He manages to knock a bunch of them out of the sky, and he's like, all right, Cosmic Kid, boy, whatever. I know your power set is magnetizing. Let's see how you do against pure energy. And so he blasts him with an energy beam. For some reason, I literally cannot tell why, Chameleon Boy, lad, kid, just rams into one of the other Legionnaires as she goes to attack. I don't know why it happens, but then the Invisible One shows up, has grabbed hold of Captain Atom from behind. He uses his powers to get his hands off of him, and then he's just like, yeah, all right, duly noted. And so the fight continues. We then go back over to Blue Beetle. Turns out the dog from outside has come into the ship. Tracy's trying to shoo it away, but it runs up to Ted, and Ted's like, oh, hey, boy, I'm going to adopt you. I will call you Blue Beagle. And Tracy's like, okay, sure, why not? Let's do whatever. So back over to the fight, real quick with Blue Beetle. He's looking at 3 specific Legionnaires saying, that might just be enough. One of them is Saturn Girl. I don't know the other 2. We then see that as Captain Atom is taking on a bunch of the Legionnaires, Brainiac 5 comes up to the question, just being like, hi, I'm a super intellect Brainiac 5. You won't be around to see the final battle. And Question's like, before you kill me, answer this. When is the ending reflective of a time yet to be? And I guess it just breaks Brainiac's brain, because he just sits there puzzled for a while. In comes Karate Master or whatever, just like, what did you do? And he's just like, who's to say? Wait, are you the question? Am I? So he's just being his normal difficult self. We see that those 3 Legionnaires from before, including Saturn Girl, have been led over to the Beetle. doors open, they just walk right in, and Beetle's like, hey, look, I'm not stupid. I know I can't fight all three of you, so I was hoping we can come to a bit of a compromise here. And they're just like, seriously? I mean, maybe. Yeah, we can talk about that. We can see what's up. So we then cut back over to the fight. Captain Adams saying, like, I'm not going to fail the people of this city, but he is clearly on his last legs. He's not doing so hot. And then all of a sudden, earthquake hits. Same ones throughout all the books, but this one decimates Hub City. Every building just falls, and there is nothing left. It is debris and chaos, and it's awful. And Captain Adam just falls to the ground. He's like, the entire city was just, there was nothing we could do. Like, well, it was just an instant. What happened there? And the Legionnaires are like, oh my god, I'm sorry. Like, we didn't want all this. This is too much. So Beetle arrives in his Beetle and says, like, there's no reason to continue the fight. And Saturn Girl says, yeah, he's right. Let's all go discuss the terms of surrender. So they all hop onto the ship, and as they all get in, Captain Adams like, I'm sorry, Ted, we failed you. The city lost. And Ted's like, don't worry about it. We're cool. And they're like, what? And it turns out, as they look through the lens of the Beetle, Hub City is still fine. It's still standing. And Blue Beetle's idea was Saturn Girl and the other two Legionnaires that I don't know use their powers in concert with each other to make it appear that the city was destroyed and that Telos got the winners and losers that he wanted. So Brainiac congratulates him, says he's a genius, and his own teammates are just like, yeah, you did it, Cord, good job. And questions like, but do you really think it'll stop Telos? And Blue Beetle goes, oh no, I mean, not for any meaningful period of time, but, you know, we gotta go out there, we gotta do something. And the final panel is the Beetle flying through the air as Telos' face is there, smiling in the clouds. What? All right, so let's bring it back a peg here. Art-wise, it's very manga, anime-inspired. It absolutely feels that way. I am okay with it. It works here. It's a quirky book. I'm all right with it here. No major concerns. I don't know these Legionnaires, and this has been a problem with every single Legion book that has ever been published, ever. Where we are introducing all these characters, you expect me to just be like, oh yeah, that one, that has these powers. But like, I don't think we even get Saturn Girl's name in this. I know her just because I've been reading these books, but like, the other two, there's no mention of what they can do. And this fact that we're doing this thing of, oh, we're trying to trick Telos, the planet itself, into not knowing that Hub City was not actually destroyed. And then on top of that, like, the entire thing that we've seen in all of these books is the loser gets their city erased regardless of whether it's still standing or not. So this was a horrible idea, top to bottom. If that was the point, so be it, but it's not played that way. So yeah, I mean, it's a weird read, especially in concert with all of the other Convergence books. I think if you're just reading it on your own without that knowledge, it's fine, but it's a weird tie-in when you know all the rest of the stuff. So I'm going to say it's a 6. It's I feel like if it weren't a Convergence, like if none of the other tie-ins existed, this probably would be like a 7 minimum. But it's so out of place with all of the other tie-ins, like this shouldn't work and it doesn't really like function. It's, I don't know, it's a weird place for me, but I'm gonna say 6. That's where I'm coming down at. Convergence Crime Syndicate number 2, written by Brian Buccellato, art by Phil Winslade. So the Crime Syndicate's opponents, as we discovered last issue, were the Justice League of DC 1 million, set in the 853rd century, and also we had the death of their Superwoman, I think her name is, Lois Lane. So this issue picks up with Wonder Woman of the Justice League as she's talking about vague history of like, oh, you know, I'm a member of the Justice Legion Alpha, and all this stuff happened when we were, the acolytes of Darkseid were attacking, blah, blah, blah. It just kind of gives a little thing of, here's what's been happening in our world. It doesn't play into much. So we follow Johnny Quick and Power Ring as they are exploring this town, this futuristic looking city here, and they're like, So, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, we're supposed to fight? There's all these lives on us, but, like, we're not heroes. Like, what do we do? And Power Ring's like, here, let me just tell my ring to go find somebody. And then immediately their Flash, the Justice Legion's Flash comes in, starts throwing punches, knocks Power Ring on his ass. And Johnny Quick's like, oh, not so fast. And they start chasing after each other. At the end of the last issue, Ultraman knocked down the Superman of the Justice Legion, seemingly killing him. He just busts out of the rubble and just like, well, that was annoying. I don't really want to fight these guys, but if I have to, so be it. Although he does say, like, Kal-El wouldn't accept these circumstances, and neither will I. So he's willing to fight, but he doesn't want to, like, kill or anything like that. Either way, he comes across Aquaman, who, again, is a alien from Neptune, and he's just like, hey, Aquaman, have you seen anybody else? He's like, nah, have you fought an enemy? He's like, well, there was a guy who knocked me into some rubble, and I guess he thought that killed me, but no, other than that, I'm fine. And then as they're talking about the plan of, like, what they have to do, Superman's like, we have to stop this senseless competition. Like, there's not going to be any winners here. So first thing is we got to find someone else on the other side. However, there's no sun, which means my abilities will disappear very quickly here. And then in comes Power Ring, and he doesn't even get a word in edgewise. He just flies in, and Aquaman's like, all right, you do what you got to do, but I'm not going to force your energy to be used here. I'll take this guy down. So he jumps in, starts attacking Power Ring. We see Ultraman is going around looking for anyone else to attack. He's just like, oh, I'm going to make them pay for what they did to Superwoman. And then he gets hit by a giant rock that goes down to a lake, and turns out it was thrown by Wonder Woman. She's like, is that it? That was much of a fight. And then Ultraman busts out, and he's like, you want to fight? Oh my god, it's Lois. What? So we then go over to Owlman, who's just stalking through some alleyways. He knows that their Batman is following, and he's just like, you gonna keep on following me? And he's like, that depends. Are you willing to listen to a deal? And he's like, I mean, I guess. What you got? And he's just like, look, we shouldn't be fighting one another. We should combine our efforts to find a madman behind this. And I think I know where the power source behind it all resides. We're heroes. We shouldn't be playing with other people's lives. And Owlman's just like, I appreciate everything you just said. I am not a hero, so no. And he's just like, fair enough. And so Batman goes to attack. Owlman just fires a grappling hook up and is just like, nah, man, I ain't fighting for any of this. I'm out. And so he just starts running away. And Batman's like, what, are you going to want me to chase you friggin' coward? So we see a battle against the Flashes. Johnny Quick manages to land a solid punch on their version of Flash, and the Flash goes down hard into the ground. And Johnny Quick's just standing there over the body like, ha-ha! And standing right there is Batman. And so he's about to start charging after Batman. Batman throws down a seeming quick freeze pellet. According to Johnny Quick, he's just like, haha, you thought the extreme cold would slow me down, but not fast enough. Turns out it wasn't a quick freeze pellet. It was deadly neurotoxins. And it causes, well, not deadly, but it causes paralysis in his body enough, and Batman just kicks him in the face and knocks him out. So Aquaman is fighting against Power Ring, and Power Ring's like, let me guess, you're called Neptune, right? You got like water for hair? And he's like, no, I'm Aquaman, but I'm from the planet Neptune. And he's like, what? So your planet is full of water and whatnot? And he's like, yes, I control it on a molecular level. And he's just like, right. And does that mean you can breathe underwater? And he's like, yeah, of course. Why are you talking so much? Why are we not fighting? And Power Ring's like, I just want to try this. And then he puts the Green Lantern construct, not Green Lantern, whatever it's called, construct onto Aquaman's head that is seemingly suffocating him in like a scuba diving mask, and just being like, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to wait until you get knocked out, then I'm going to take it out. But Aquaman uses his water kinesis, hydrokinesis, to drain the water out of Power Ring's body just enough to completely dehydrate him to losing consciousness. And so he wins the fight, and then is immediately knocked out by some mystery figure that we don't get to see who it is. So we then cut over to Superman of the Legion, who's using his supervision up into the sky for absolutely no reason. Batman comes in saying like, hey, shouldn't you be focused on looking around? And he's like, oh, I'm trying to see beyond the atmosphere, trying to figure out where the sun is. And Batman's like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. You need to conserve your energy, but I do think there is an energy source below us that's responsible for all this. So how about you start looking down for that? And Superman just looks down, starts pummeling into the ground, making a giant hole. Batman's just kind of doing his own thing. Like, he's setting up a grappling hook to go down into the hole afterwards. And as Superman comes back up, he's like, look, I can't punch anymore. I'm out of energy. I can't do anything. I need to be able to charge in the sun again. And Batman's like, okay, well, there may not be a sun, but you go up, you do what you have to do. And he flies up there, and then as soon as he gets to the atmosphere, there is no sun. He's out of air. He's out of power. He just crashes back down to the earth, and he's like out. So we see Batman is lowering himself down to the hole. Owlman sees him lowering down, but doesn't do anything. Ultraman's still fighting against Wonder Woman, and we hear this percentage counting down as the fight is going on. And Ultraman's like, you look just like her. You're almost as strong as Superwoman, but you're not quite. Let's see how you deal without those bracers, because that's what's shouting out this stuff to her. And he's like, what's that countdown? She was like, oh, my bracers have artificial intelligence. They're giving me a breakdown of the battle. And he's like, oh, okay. And it seems like it's counting down to when she runs out of energy, or it runs out of energy. But it turns out the counter is actually for when Ultraman runs out of energy, because she had a hunch that he's also solar powered the same way as their Superman. So as soon as he runs out of energy, she grabs hold of one of his punches, just like bends his wrist back and says like, yep, you're at 0, punches him out. So at that point, Owlman shows up and says, you look like a woman I used to know. And she's like, yeah, you want to fight? What's up? And the bracers give the breakdown that Owlman doesn't have powers. And he's like, no. Hey, look, look, current standings, as far as I understand it, is it's you and your Batman against me. And she's like, well, then you're going to lose. And he's like, no, I'm not going to fight. Look, my city just killed my version of Superwoman, Wonder Woman, whatever you want to call her, Lois Lane, the woman I loved. Let them die. Screw them. I don't want them to live. They deserve to suffer for what they did. And Wonder Woman's like, that's sweet in a really messed up way, but I don't agree. But, you know, I'll kill you quick because you're making it easy on me. And as he like is ready to like, yep, all right, do it. Take what you got to do. He looks over and says, Lois, and then Wonder Woman bashes him upside the head, seemingly killing him. And then we cut over and we see Superwoman survived. Lois is back. She's in the fight against this version of Wonder Woman. She rushes over to Owlman's body being like, oh, I thought you were dead, and I thought he was dead. And Wonder Woman's like, hey, what's going on here? He said that you were dead. It's like, oh, I was, but I have immortality as my power set. When the dome came up, I guess I still had enough of a heartbeat that it could kick in, and like, I'm fine. And then I was teleported here. And she basically goes on this whole thing of saying, like, Crime Syndicate's always been selfish, but that doesn't mean that we can't be heroes when we need to. So we've now got Superwoman versus Wonder Woman. They start fighting each other. The fight is so strong, it starts causing the ground to rumble, or maybe it's the earthquake, who knows. And Batman, who is rappelling down this hole, gets hit by debris and is seemingly killed, just separate from everything else. So the fight between the two women, they fall down into a huge crevice. Rocks are falling down upon them. And as the fight finally stops, one woman pops out and she says, it's over. Which one is it? Book doesn't say. It is objectively either one of them because their costumes are close enough and it's been torn up enough that we can't actually tell who it is that survived the fight. So, Crime Syndicate, Justice League, 10 million or whatever? We'll never know. But one of them won. Look, I can appreciate the Crime Syndicate side of things. I think that there is some well-written pathos there, especially in Owlman's part of things. I was curious about the Batman of the DC 1 million stuff. It seemed like he had his own agenda, but then he just died like a chump. It's kind of ballsy to end this on a kind of cliffhanger of we don't know who won the battle because we don't know which Wonder/Superwoman came out of it. So there's things that I like about it, but overall it does kind of feel just haphazard in a way. It feels like, you know, there's 5 people-ish on each team. It's just a little bit much. So I don't know. It's kind of in the middle for me. I think I'm going to say this one is I'm going to say 6.5. The 0.5 is debatable, but I think it just cracks it because of that stuff that I said that I liked. But it's not for everyone. I'll definitely say that. It's definitely not up there for everyone. Convergence, Plastic Man and the Freedom Fighters #2, written by Simon Oliver, art by John McCrea. So, last issue we got the reveal that with all of the power sets and everything like that coming back, the Freedom Fighters are freed from their prison, they're off to go fight, and we get a little last page reveal of next issue coming, showing that it's going to be a three-way fight between Plastic Man, the Silver, whatever his name was, and Future's End universe with all the robots and stuff. So we pick up this issue with a backstory on Plastic Man. He fell into a vat of chemicals. He became Plastic Man. Turns out he got trained by monks to fight. Okay. And then we cut 2 years later and we show that a whole bunch of Nazis went to go take on the Future's End universe, and it didn't go well for the Nazis. So the Freedom Fighters are watching from above and they're like, yeah, you know, I'm kind of feeling good about seeing the Nazis get killed, but we got to go down and fight the robots now. Could have enjoyed it for a little longer. So the Freedom Fighters bust in. They're trying to start attacking all of them. They do manage to take out this wave of the robots, but it's not like the central hub, so it's kind of useless. In comes Silver, what's his name? Whenever I get a full name, I'll tell you. Silver Ghost, there it is. He drives up and he's like, ah, yes, Freedom Fighters. I was wondering when I'd see you again. Yeah, I guess we're on the same side as long as we're fighting against this machine menace. Come, we have things to show you. So we see a Nazi camp has been set up and they bring him over there. And they have managed to capture the Superman robot, the Superman version of one. It's like, yes, we've done some tests and all that. They are essentially perfect soldiers. They are entirely disposable and yet extremely strong. But we've noticed that they are controlled by a single sentient entity. And everyone's remarking like, okay, Silver Ghost, sounds like you're like really into this. Can you tone it back just a little bit? But the Superman robot shoots up, immediately tries to grab Phantom Lady. And Silver Ghost manages to get a chain wrapped around Superman's neck, pull extra hard, and it just cuts off his head. And so they hold the decapitated Superman head. And it's like, look, we have only one chance, and if we fail, they will kill everyone in our beloved New York City. So we must go find the sentient entity. And they're like, okay, how do we find it? And it turns out that there's some sort of a tracking device or something like that that'll lead to it in this Superman head. So we get kind of a montage sequence here where we show the Freedom Fighters are laying down traps and they're setting up defenses and stuff like that to make sure that the machines don't get to New York City. They'll fight them out in the wasteland. Meanwhile, Plastic Man and Silver Ghost are going on their own little Black Ops mission deep into the city where the quote-unquote entity is, and they're going to take it out. And there's a little bit of philosophical talk here where Silver Ghost is like, so you're saying that if America won World War II, they would have treated Germany any differently? They wouldn't have subjugated and conquered them? And Plastic Man's like, well, they would have fought for peace and prosperity and democracy. Like, then you would have been able to let that. And then Silver Ghost is like, what, you don't have peace and prosperity there? It's like, yeah, well, it's worthless without the democracy part of it. So we see a bunch of the machines are making their way through. They have to stay quiet and act in the shadows. And then we see down on the other side, the Nazis and the Freedom Fighters have teamed up to fight against the machine threat. And they're doing a good job to fight it back, at least for now. So deep in the city, some time passes. We see Plastic Man and them arrive. There's a whole bunch of drones that are keeping track of everything in the city. So they have to move very stealthily, moving as bad as they can. And Plastic Man's like, oh my god, this is too much. And finally they get a rooftop and they see the entity, which in the Future's End universe is Brother Eye. Like, that's not really debatable. In here, it seems to be kind of Akira. Like, it's the Mother Queen alien thing going on, where it's just a really big horde of machine parts that are vaguely, disgustingly flesh in a way. So, with all the drones flying about, Silver Ghost says, look, I think it's best we split up, plant these charges individually for maximum impact, and he shakes Plastic Man's hand and said, like, oh, if we don't meet again, and I have to admit you are better than the poor, pathetic Eel O'Brien. And he's like, thanks, I guess. But as Plastic Man's walking away, he's like, well, you know, I haven't forgotten you're a damn Nazi, so screw you. But also, I can recognize that these are fake explosives. So question is, why are you trying to trick me? So we see Plastic Man makes his way down the hall, tries to plant the explosives, or at least get to the point where he's supposed to, but some robots start attacking, they start firing, and he calls out to Silver Ghost saying, oh, a little help here? And Silver Ghost says, nope, afraid not, and he just kind of skips merrily along to go do his own thing. Meanwhile, at the main front line, we see that the machines have now started sending in war wheels, which are impervious to their previous attacks. There's nothing they can do, and they start rolling their way towards New York. So Silver Ghost is managing to hold his own against the robots, and he's like, yes, for the glory of the Reich, it shall be mine. And he makes his way up to the centerpiece of the machine mind, and he discovers that the piece he's looking for is missing. And there's Plastic Man saying, oh, looking for something? Yeah, sorry for not dying, but whenever you were on that whole super soldier thing from before, I figured that you'd be doing something underhanded, so I stole the robot's blueprints, and I guess now I won't need these fake explosives. And he throws it onto a conveyor belt that's like moving its way into the beast. And Silver Ghost is like, what are you doing, you idiot? And he's just like, yeah, well, you may call me an idiot, but I saw right through you. You should have killed me yourself. And immediately Silver Ghost is like, no, you're an idiot because those weren't fake explosives. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? All of a sudden, the whole thing goes up. Massive explosion. But there is a fight now between Plastic Man and Silver Ghost as the front line is struggling to hold back the war wheels. Plastic Man's reaching out for the blueprints. He's trying to make sure Silver Ghost can't get them. And he says, oh, well, now we'll kill you once and for all, Plastic Man. But before he can do that, there's a rumble. The earthquake happens. Silver Ghost loses his focus for a moment. He isn't sure what's happening. Plastic Man takes a second to throw a curved punch with his plastic arm, and then he takes the blueprint and just chucks it as far as he can. And Silver Ghost manages to jump up. He manages to grab it, but I guess something's happening here where there's more of an explosive building up. And so it traps Silver Ghost right in the middle of the explosion as Plastic Man jumps off to safety. And he's like, yeah, you know, it's moving on isn't forgetting about where you came from. It's not forgetting your past. It's about learning from your mistakes and growing up. Because, yeah, part of me might still be Eel O'Brien, petty criminal. And you know what? That's all right by me. And we see he's killed the Silver Ghost. So, yeah, it's okay. I don't know. I guess I kind of wish they wouldn't split the difference so much. There was a bit in here where they're talking about the philosophy between the two and the fact they have to work together against a bigger threat. Like, there's some interesting aspects to that, and I would have liked a bit more of that. But on the other side of that, if they really wanted to lean into this idea of them fighting against the Future's End robots, I would have been okay with that as well. For me, it felt like this was kind of mentally structured as a three-parter, and we just got the first part all in one, the same way as we would have, and the back two got hyper condensed down. Like, the third part would have been split at the point where it seemed like Eel was dead. Like, he was attacked by the robots, and there was no way he was going to be able to survive. Instead, we got this hyper condensed, and it just feels like we didn't get enough of anything. So I'm going to say this one is a 6 for me, personally. I just really wanted more out of it, especially with something that readers of New 52 would be very familiar with, the Future's End timeline. It just happened. We should have very clear lines as to what this is, and it didn't feel like it fit with the Future's End timeline at all. So, yeah, 6 for this. A little disappointing. Convergence Booster Gold number 2, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Alvaro Martinez. So last issue we had a lot. It's a really in-depth issue that actually ties into the Mage Convergence series a lot more than you'd think. But the long and short of it is, New 52 Booster met up with pre-Flashpoint Booster along with Rip Hunter and Booster's sister, and they just kind of started warping around, and they ended up inside of the Superboy and a Legion of Superheroes town. And then it ended with pre-Flashpoint Booster meeting up with post-Crisis Blue Beetle, or pre-Infinite Crisis? I don't know, somewhere around there, Blue Beetle. So we pick up with this, and Booster's like, oh my god, Blue Beetle, you're alive? That's impossible. And we see they're still under the dome and all that. And he's like, of course I'm alive. Like, I ate at that burrito place last night, but why would that kill me? Well, anyway, what's up with you? You got a different uniform on and you look old? But Booster's so happy, he gives Ted a big hug, and he's like, oh my god, you're alive, it's really you. And he's like, yeah, no, hey, people are watching, they're going to get the wrong idea. So he's asking, like, what's up, man? What's going on with you? He's like, hey, I don't know. I guess I just forgot what was going on. This version of Metropolis seems to be around 0 hour. Is that the time period here? Parallax? And he's like, what? What? I don't even understand what you're talking about, man. And anyway, I've been looking everywhere for you. Even Max is scared about where you've been. And Booster's like, oh yeah, Max Lord. Don't ever trust Max Lord, Ted. I need you to promise me that. Do not trust him. And he's like, what? Okay, I guess. Anyway, why do you look so different? Booster's like, I'm not really the Booster that you know who I am. I'm just from out of town. And then he starts doubling over in pain. He's like down on the ground. He's like, oh God, something's going on. He's like, did you eat at that burrito place too? I know, it's bad. But as he's still curled over in pain, Blue Beetle's like, all right, hey, I'm going to get you some help. And so he summons the Beetle and gets up into the sky. And as they get up into the Beetle, he's like, look, I'm taking you Metropolis General. That's what we're doing. Booster's like, no, they can't help me. It's what I'm suffering from is too far beyond them. But Beetle's still flying around, still trying to get him there. And he's like, yeah, let me guess. It's some strange force that's aging you up, right? That's what this is. And Booster's like, I mean, kind of. Like, I'm from the future. And he's like, yeah, I know you're from the future. That's your whole bit. And he's like, no, like, I'm from your future. I'm like 15 years older than you would think that I am. And he's like, really? Is that what that symbol on your chest is? And he's like, yeah, that's Argus. And I've been to other places and times. I've seen stuff you wouldn't even believe. And then he starts doubling over in pain again. He's like, well, wherever you're from, I got to keep the blue and gold alive. So I'm going to go get you some help. So we cut over to Michelle, the sister of that version of Booster. And he's like, rip, Booster. Other Boosters gone, but they're got their hands full with the Legion of Superheroes and Superboy who are challenging them. As Booster has no idea who the Legion is. Like, it's absolutely shocking to them. It's like, okay, well, they're looking like they're wanting a fight. What do we do here? And Skeets kind of gives the lowdown on like who a couple of them are, and Booster just makes fun of their names, just like, oh yeah, Starboy, Twinkle Lass, and Feather Girl coming to town too. So at that point, they realize, wait a minute, hold on, you're wearing a Legion ring. How did you get your hands on that? And he's like, oh, is that what the L stands for? And that is 100% enough for Colossal Lad to be like, all right, I've heard enough. This guy stole a ring. I'm going to go get him. So the fight starts out. They start fighting blasts and all that. The Legion very quickly realizes that despite the fact they're under the dome, while Booster and co are here, they have their powers back enacted. So they're ready to go start fighting off as well. Rip and all the rest of them just start bolting. They don't want to be a part of that. But Superboy lands in front of them. And Booster very quickly comes to the realization like, oh, this isn't a dude dressed up as Superman. This is Boy Superman. And Rip's like, yeah, Superboy, that's his name. Good job. So they're saying, all right, you guys know what's going on. You know something about these domes. Tell us what's happening. And Rip Hunter's like, ask your questions. We've got all the time in the world. And then he presses a button and causes them to time warp 45 minutes into the future. They didn't move at all, but they're in the future now, which of course Rip is like, they'll think we teleported away. They're long gone. They're not going to worry about it. But we do have to get going. We got to focus more and figure out where we need to be. And Skeets is like, hey, I've got a lock on our Booster Gold, the version that we want to find. He's over in a nearby town. He's not far from here. So they lock in again and they try to figure out what to do to go save that version of Booster. So we then cut over inside the dome and they are at the Cord Metropolis Advanced Research Division. And it's like, okay, well, we're running tests, we're doing what we can. But Booster, who is looking like he's in his 50s at this point, is like, Ted, look, it's all going to become clear. Don't worry about it, but like, you're not going to be able to save me here. And Ted's just like, well, hold on. Well, why don't you just tell me about what's going on? What's going to happen in my life? 15 years? What happens to me? Am I married to a supermodel? Like, what's going on? And he's like, you just have to experience it yourself. But he basically says, like, yeah, look, I got married. I have a kid. Like, there's a bunch of stuff you don't know about it. But then he doubles over in pain again. And he tells him, like, look, this is from the hazards of unprotected time travel. I have chronal radiation poisoning, and I'm dying. And it's basically just causing, like, I've left too much of myself in the time stream. I'm aging up too quick. And Blue Beetle's like, what, you're just going to die? No way. I'm not letting the blue and gold die like that. We have fans. So as he's, sitting down talking to Blue Beetle, he's like, no, it's been a good life. I wouldn't have traded for anything. And Blue Beetle's like, well, that's good. And hey, remember when we bought up every bag of Oreos so that Martian Manhunter had to quit? I thought he was going to kill us. And I was like, yeah, that was the best prank ever. So we follow the rest of the time team as they teleport into Cord Industries. And Rip's like, oh, Ted Cord is alive? And it's like, yeah, this is from a universe before he was killed. And this new 52 Booster Gold's like, Cord, the inventor kid? What's so special about him? And it's like, well, in your universe, nothing. Like, you don't have to worry about him. But in most universes, you and him are best friends. And it's like, oh, weird. So we see that the door is locked as they try to get in. Booster just punches it in, causes the alarm to go off, where Blue Beetle's like, great, now we've got intruders. But as the team comes in, pre-Flashpoint Booster's like, oh, hey, Rip, I'm glad you're here, son. I wanted to see you again. And Blue Beetle's like, wait, hold on. If that's a son, who are you? And he points to New 52 Booster and just like, Booster from a different zip code. Just don't worry about it. Also, I have a very different Blue Beetle in my universe. So basically, Booster's like, hey, look, I'm ready to die. Don't worry about it. Like, it's all good. I just wanted to talk to you one last time here. And Rip's like, hey, look, it's a long shot, but we might have a way to save you. You know what I'm talking about. And he's like, it's wrong to use that for personal gain. And Rip's just like, if anyone deserves it, it's you, Dad. Like, you deserve the chance to do it. So Booster tries to say his goodbyes. He passes out. Rip calls over the young Booster and is like, hey, you're going to teleport us where we need to go now. And he's just like, okay, what? Tell me what you need. Where are we going? He's like, we're going to Vanishing Point. And he's like, that's a little bit illegal. I don't think I should do that. And Rip says, oh, I'm sorry. Is this the same Booster Gold that gave it up to Brainiac not like X hours ago? Yeah, you're going to tell us what's up. So he's like, all right, you really think you can save him? Rip says yeah. So they teleport over to the Vanishing Point, which has been ransacked. It's completely destroyed. Brainiac looks like he trashed it as he left. But as they're dragging old Booster down the halls of it, they mention that they need to go down into the vault. And New 52 Booster doesn't know anything about a vault, but Rip's like, yeah, you had to grow up here to know all the little secrets in and out. So they go down in this elevator, get down to this big old vault, and it turns out that behind it is the power source for the place. It is a chronal field. No human can survive it. And they want New 52 Booster to bring pre-Flashpoint Booster in. And he's like, excuse me, I'll die too. And he's like, no. You have your force field. You'll be able to survive long enough inside there. So they bring him inside. They set down the old Booster. His body immediately starts being torn apart. But Skeets gives the breakdown of saying because of his chronal signature being imprinted with all the chronal radiation, blah, 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 he's going to merge with the field and be revitalized, or that's the idea. So New 52 Booster exits the vault. They close the door, and at that point, Rip's like, well, it may not revitalize him or bring him back or whatever, but it's probably going to transform him. Force field on, please. And then all of a sudden, there's a massive explosion coming out of the vault. And as they look up, they see a humanoid figure standing there. Wave Rider. I will not explain Wave Rider. Just know he's kind of like Dr. Manhattan-esque. He's got some like future powers, and he's able to warp time in a lot of ways. And so pre-Flashpoint Booster has now become Wave Rider, and he says, oh, it's too dangerous for you guys to be here. A bunch of antimatter is going to show up and end life throughout the universe. My only hope to protect you is to send you to your proper places. And so he looks at Ted first and says, or he's like, oh, I can feel all of time powering me. It's the essence of what I am. And he looks at Blue Beetle and says, Ted, you shouldn't be here. You got to get back to your own timeline. You've got your own stuff to do. I'll see you later, old friend. And he teleports him back there. Then he looks at New 52 Booster, and it's kind of implied that he sends him back to the New 52 like universe, like in that timeline. But we see very clearly that he doesn't do that. He actually just sends him back to Telos. So he's back at that point, and he says, hey, you have your own destiny you'll have to fulfill, and use your responsibility well. And then he goes up to Rip and Michelle and says, I have to hide you guys from Brainiac where he can never find you. Rip, your true name and your mom are going to remain a mystery. I'm not going to tell you what that is. But right now we're in a crisis. So he teleports them out, and then he goes from Vanishing Point riding on a rainbow and says, I must do what is necessary as only as I can. Time is of the essence. And so he's off to go do something. To be continued in Convergence number 8. Okay. Good on it. I mean, that's really the least I could say here, is that this is the only Convergence tie-in, this and the part 1, that feel like it actually matters in some extent to the larger plot going on. Kudos to that, where it actually feels like it's a thing that is going to matter in some way. Now, having already read Convergence number 8, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you could have easily skipped this and it wouldn't have mattered at all. But that's kind of the sign of a good tie-in. You don't need to read it, but it gives you that little bit of extra, okay, I guess that makes sense now, if you weren't reading it beforehand. So, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed these issues. I think it did a good job of, like, giving me just enough connection to pre-Flashpoint Booster Gold, where it actually really is a cool thing that he turned into Wave Rider here. You got the new 52 Booster Gold also being heroic in his own ways. Blue Beetle was great. I really like this one. I think I'm going to give this one a flat 8. I think it's right up there. It's a great issue, but it is limited by its status as a tie-in. It can't really get above that value without being something extra super special. But 8 is nothing to snuff at either. Convergence number 8, written by Jeff King and Scott Lobdell, art by a bunch of people, including Steven Segovia, Carlo Pagulian, Eduardo Pansica, and Ethan Van Sciver. So last issue, Parallax showed up as Deimos was launching his big plan and stuff, and just straight up murdered Deimos. But it turns out because he had so much chronal energy in him, whoops, everything's going to be destroyed. So we pick up here and Parallax is still like just finishing killed him, just like there. I hated the fact that we were focusing on Deimos. He's so insignificant. Let's focus on the crisis level event we got going on here. And Dr. Fate's behind going like, you friggin' idiot, you just sealed our fate. And he starts looking at like the crater that once was Deimos, as everyone else is like, what's going on, man? And he's like, yeah, he had... this entire planet is outside of existence. It is outside of the multiverse, and it's threatening to destroy it. And now that there is all this temporal energy that were stolen from the Time Masters, it's gone into the planet. It will soon ignite, and it's going to shatter the entirety of the multiverse. So good job breaking it, Parallax. And Parallax is like, whatever, I can stop it. I can save us all. And everyone looks up like, how? And Wonder Woman from 0 Hours like, no, I don't trust this guy. He's a dick. Nobody should trust him. And he's like, screw you, Diana. I know what's best for everyone. And Telos comes back, starts wrapping him up inside of his like silver nanite stuff and just being like, no, if you know what was best for everyone, you would have just knocked Deimos unconscious. Like, you didn't have to murder him. And so he's like, yes, okay, Deimos may have destroyed all of the many men and women in service of the time stream, but I can sense even more of them on their way now. So let's just chill out for a moment and wait for the heroes to show up. And Parallax is like, look, get all the lanterns together, let me take their rings, and then Telos is like, and what, do 0 Hour again? No, I'm not letting you warp reality. Just shut up. You're no longer a part of this. And so the Flashes are like, oh, I can feel the frequency of this world accelerating. And Telos is like, yes, that's the countdown beginning. So the heroes show up. Turns out it's Booster Gold, his sister from another universe, Michelle, and Wave Rider, who we saw happen in the Booster Gold tie-in. And just like, hey everyone, I'm Booster Gold, this is Gold Star, it's a whole bunch of stuff. Wave Rider can explain. And Wave Rider's like, look, temporal energy is too powerful for any one of us to absorb it. We know someone who can, though. We're taking a risk, but it's this or absolute destruction. So everybody put your hands together for Brainiac. And then Wave Rider just pulls out the T-Sphere that's holding Brainiac and just starts setting him free. And everyone's like, wait, hold on, what? No, don't do that. Brainiac's the one who caused all this in the first place. And as he's being released, everyone gets ready to attack. And Brainiac's like, what? No, stop it. I'll destroy all of you. But then Superman steps up and he's like, oh yeah, Brainiac? Then what? Then you'll be destroyed with the rest of us. I thought you were supposed to be smart. I thought you were the smartest in the universe. And he's like, smartest in the universe is. I was going to be smartest in the multiverse, but look at me. I'm a freak. I'm a friggin' cancerous mess right now. This isn't who I was before. I now know pain and loss. I know a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even know beforehand. And Telos is like, hey, Brainiac, yeah, this is a real cool backstory and all, but could we, like, I don't know, maybe, like, fix the planet? Can we do that real quick? And he's like, oh, I know, Telos. I know. But I am going to finish with my backstory. And so we get, how did Brainiac come to look as this giant kaiju monster compared to when we last saw him? And he was just kind of a 6-foot-tall green dude. Well, turns out that he set out upon the universe, and he was thinking, all right, once Flashpoint happened, I wasn't affected by it. For whatever reason, I saw it, I just moved right through it, and I saw it out to become something more. So he moved upon the universe, managed to get past the source wall, and he got to Vanishing Point. As we saw already, that was a thing in a previous comic. And so he was able to see the entirety of the multiverse. All of Hypertime opened up to him, the multiverse, and he saw all these other different versions of Brainiac, and he saw people reading about Brainiac and people looking at Brainiac, and he's like, I reached into the multiverse, I got so much power, and I chose to evolve in the same way that the Monitors evolved. And we see the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor there. But he was caught up in Infinite Crisis, and also, I'm assuming Final Crisis, because it's a giant worm-looking thing. I think that's Mr. Mind. I don't know. And when he finally came out of it all, he was in New 52, and he looks like this. And he's got all these cancerous growths on his bodies because of his exposure to pure multiversal energy. And he's like, I don't want to be that. I want to be the somewhat handsome 6-foot-tall green man. Please help me. And Dick Grayson's like, I'm sorry. Did you just say help you? Are you kidding me? Are you really playing me right now? Why in the hell would we help you? And Telos is like, no, Dick, be compassionate. Maybe that's what we need right now. And Telos reaches up and he holds the giant finger of Brainiac and says, maybe in the end, it's just about seeing your mistakes. So we cut over to Earth Zero. Superman and Supergirl are standing next to where Telos is coming out in the giant portal. And it's like, hey, everyone else bailed. Even the Red Lanterns had people to say bye to. Are we going to die? And Superman's like, what? No, we got to have hope here, Kara. And we got to have hope that whoever's down on that planet fighting the good fight will continue to do so. That's all we get. So we then see Brainiac. He is starting to absorb the temporal energy from the planet. Everyone's like, what are you doing? And he's like, all right, Telos is no longer connected with the planet. He's no longer his thing. I am now connected with the planet. I'm taking all the temporal energy, and I'm sending all of you back to your own homes. You're all going back to your timelines right where I pulled you out of. It is the only way to reset the multiverse. And the Earth 2 people are like, oh yeah, we're in this book. Hey, we don't have a home. And Brainiac's like, oh, all right, pick a universe. I'll just send you wherever you want. It's like, what? No, we still want to go back to our universe. Like, we have people in that universe. We just don't have an Earth to go back to. And he's like, look, I don't care. All that matters to me is I get rid of this temporal energy. Like, whatever you guys figure out, just let me know. And then all of a sudden he shudders and he's like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. No, that ain't right. And Telos is like, what's up, man? And he like crumples over. He shrinks down so he's at the same scale of everybody else. And he's like, all right, I've got some bad news for you all. Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. And for some reason, because Crisis is too strong, like I can't move past it, I can't change it or anything like that, the multiverse is collapsed down into one universe, and that means that I can't send everybody home because it's all one universe. You get my drift there? Like, I can't put you back in the Infinite Universe if it's all one universe. So, Supergirl and Flash, I have to send you back to your timelines. You guys were about to die in Crisis anyway, so just, you know that's going to happen. They're like, yeah. Our tie-ins, we dealt with that. Don't worry about it. We're cool with it. And he's like, all right, cool. So yeah, a lot of you are going to be going back to the like death points there. But then post-Crisis Superman, or pre-Crisis, post-Crisis, I don't know. The Superman that has the kid is just like, hey, wait a minute, hold on. If you're going to send us back too, send me back with Supergirl and Flash. I can help them out. I'm going to help them and try to make it so like this isn't a thing. And Parallax finally stands up being like, and I'm going back too. You may think I'm a villainous prick, but it turns out I'm looking for redemption as well. And it's like, I don't believe you, but all right, fair, fine. You want to do it? Go for it. So at that point, Superman says, okay, but if like I'm going to help Brainiac, you need to send Lois and my newborn son safe. You got to put them somewhere else. And Valzad's just like, Superman, you don't have to do that. You got a family here, man. And Lois is like, the hell he is. We're going with you, man. And he's like, no, it's going to be too dangerous. And it's like, you're Superman. You're always going to come out on top. He's like, no, this sounds like Crisis. This is not a thing where, like, it may be safe. And she's like, nope, don't care. It's in our vows. I'm coming with you. So Superman's like, all right, I mean, I guess. So he's got his kid now. And she's like, all right, Brainiac, what do we need to do? And Brainiac's like, I'm going to send you guys back to the first Crisis. You have to make sure it doesn't happen. You need to make sure Crisis on Infinite Earths does not happen to the point where we do not get the single universe anymore. And in turn, that should immediately fix everything else. And they're like, all right, cool, let's do it. So Supergirl, Flash, Parallax, and Superman's family all jump into a time portal. And apparently, instantaneously, it's fixed. They did it. They have stopped Crisis on Infinite Earths from happening. What does that mean for the larger timeline of the DC Universe? Who the hell knows? But according to this 2-page spread, it says reality is resetting and stabilizing. Each world has evolved, but they all still exist. So the implication, I believe, is that the multiverse that existed pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths, aka the Infinite Earths, have made their way into modern continuity. They may not look the exact same. There is a difference to them, but they are still here. Like they have managed to make their way past. That's the gist of it as far as I could tell. So Brainiac, he's like, all right, well, I did it. I can rest now. I'm being pulled back to my own reality, which is Earth Zero. I am that version of Brainiac, and then I will be put back as my own thing. So the last thing I need to do is wipe the planet clean. No more chronal energy. And Telos is like, wait, hold on. These Earth 2 people are still here. And he's like, I read Earth 2. That's good enough. They can die. And then he just zoops out of there. And Green Lantern's like, what? So he's going to let us die here? And Green Lantern's like, okay, everyone just stay near me. I can do something. And then we see this essentially nuclear shockwave just wipe over the course of the entire planet. All of the cities, everything that was left, wiped clean. Nothing is left on this planet at all. And as if dust finally settles, we see Green Lantern has made a bubble around them to protect the Earth 2 citizens. Which I say that, but it seems to be only 5 of them. Like, I thought there were more, but I guess numerous ones of them have been killed off. So it's Superman, Dick Grayson, Yolanda, the Flash, and Green Lantern. And he says, yeah, hey, Brainiac severed his tie with this planet. This planet doesn't have an owner anymore, so now I'm connecting to it. I am the host of the green and everything else, so I bring the green on this planet, and all of a sudden the planet is lush with plants and stuff like that. And Yolanda's like, oh my god, this will be our new home, isn't it? And Flash is like, actually, I can feel the vibrational frequency. We're actually back in the Earth 2 universe as well. And everyone's like, yay! And then Telos pulls a Mufasa. He's up in the sky, and he says, yes, everyone, I'm glad you've noticed. I teleported you back to your home universe so that you can live out there. I apparently have the ability to do that, even though I'm technically just a dude now. And they're like, oh, and where are you, Telos? He's like, well, as soon as Brainiac left, I got my memory unlocked. I know my true name, and I think I know where my family might be, so I'm off to do that. Please read Telos when that comes out. And it's like, okay, bye, Telos. And then Dick Grayson's like, wait, hold on. What was Telos talking about? Because right at the very end, he said, also, Green Lantern, I think you know where your guys are. And so Green Lantern's like, oh, yeah. As soon as we went to the Earth 2 universe, I picked up on the distress signal. Like, I heard the ships that we sent up there. They're out there, so I'm just going to send up a flare. And he sends up a Green Lantern blast. It goes out into space. We see over in the Earth Zero universe, Superman and Supergirl, the planet has disappeared. And they're like, oh, that was weird. It just blinked away. But I have a feeling we'll see them again. And then the final page shows the Green Lantern signal has hit the fleet of ships. It shows them all where to go. And They say, oh, follow the light, we have a world to rebuild. The end. Oh, boy. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. I think the biggest of which is, what does it mean that you stopped Crisis on Infinite Earths? Obviously, the implication they were going for there is, hey, we now have Infinite Earths to play with. Like, yeah, the 52 multiverse, it was cool and all, but we've now managed to stop the collapse of the multiverse that began it all, so we can play with any of DC continuity. And that's a good idea. But there's this implication to it of, you just undid nearly 50 years. I guess at that point it would have been 30. You just undid 30 years of continuity and crises that happened in the meantime. Because, like, if there's no Crisis on Infinite Earths, doesn't that immediately imply there's no post-crisis continuity? Right? Like, that should be the case. But we're just ignoring that. We're just saying, like, no. Hyper time. Don't worry about it. It's like, So, okay, beyond all that, I think that this issue is messy. It has nothing to do with the rest of the series. This is such a running thing where, like, every issue just is like, yeah, but, like, screw everything we did before. This is what we're doing now. This is the same thing where all of the Earth 2 stuff is essentially an afterthought, to the point where Brainiac himself literally says, like, oh yeah, you're still here. Bye. Like, oh, okay, whatever. No, it's a mess. It really is. I will say the art's okay. I really didn't mind some of the stuff that happened. I think Brainiac's backstory of, like, how did I become Giant Gross Brainiac is okay. It's not great. It's fine. I don't know. I understand why DC has written off this event. It is no longer really canon. Nobody really cares about it. It's just its own thing. So, yeah. What do I even rate that? It's like a 5. Like, it's totally neutral. Again, there's aspects to it that are okay. The art is okay. I think Brainiac's history is fine, but, like, this is the end of the event, and I felt like nothing was accomplished. Like, they undid the first crisis, and yet they did it in a way where it still feels like nothing was accomplished. So, yeah, that's Convergence. And that's it. That is all the comics that were put out by DC Comics this May 27th, 2015. And if I'm being totally frank with you, that is kind of it for the New 52. I mean, I picked the episode title of Done for a reason. That's it. The New 52 branding stopped. If anything, it stopped before Convergence, but it's definitely done now. This is the absolute end of what you could consider the New 52. However, the runs continued. We still had Scott Snyder on Batman. Superman continuity was still more or less the same. We had a bunch of series that would be continuing and wouldn't actually be rebooted until another 12 months later, and this period was called the DCU. YOU. I'll go more in depth with what that means next week, but suffice to say, it's a new era at DC, and for anybody who's been watching this show for a while now, you'll know that I try to update a little bit of the visuals every year, every 52 episodes. Well, this is premature, but I do only have about 52 episodes left, give or take 3. So I think it's about time. I'm going to make this last year start just a little bit early here. So welcome to the DC YOU era. And we're switching over to the final shirt of the show, retiring the Wonder Woman and going with Superman. So, what do we got next week? We've got a bunch of new number ones. We've got a bunch of continuing runs. Honestly, I kind of don't want to read them off. If you're watching the video, you are more than welcome to see what's coming up. But for anybody else, tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, but contractually obligated, I'd love to end it there. I will say, we also have social media platforms. We have a Discord, Patreon, subreddit. Go ahead and check those out if you want to leave a comment on anything that we have talked about this episode or any part of Convergence. If you are opinionated about Convergence like most of the internet is, I'd love to hear your opinions. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching for all of these years up until now. And now we are in the final countdown to the end of the New 52 era. So be sure to tune in and always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.